Hey, this is Knife Standards. Today we are going to be talking about front flippers, and we'll talk about my favorite front flipper and what makes a good front flipper, what I don't like to see on front flippers, and we'll kind of go over all these knives that I have laid out here. So we'll get into all of that in just a second, but first, please follow me at Knife Standards. You can follow me on Instagram, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for a lot more knife content and weekly knife reviews. All right, cool. So let's get this gathered up and out of the way. Front flippers. I know some of you are like, oh, no, not front flippers. But front flippers are one of those things where I think when everyone gets into the knife world, the knife hobby, people kind of turn their nose up at front flippers. And I did too when I first got into knives. And I thought, why would I want one of those when I could have a regular flipper or thumb studs or, a hole to flick or whatever. So at first I wasn't into them. And then slowly started to experience better and better quality front flippers and better actions, easier, flipping tabs to, easier access to the front flipper. And I think that people can be turned off by front flippers really easily and then never want to get back into them. So I'm going to go ahead and go over kind of for me, and I don't consider myself a front flipper expert. I prefer thumb studs to front flippers, but I have learned to appreciate front flippers a lot more. So I'm going to kind of go over, for me, what makes a really good front flipper, what I enjoy about them, and then some things that I don't care for. So let's go ahead and kind of go through what we have on the table here. We have the Petrified Fish Beluga. We have the Vero Axon frame lock. We have the EMP EDC Nimble frame lock. We have the Custom Knife Factory CKF 520. And then we have the Brown Knives, oh my gosh, Cortex. Cortex? Yeah. Boom. So I always get his name. There's the LHC. Then he just came out with the FSD. I'm pretty sure this is the Cortex. I think this is the version 1 or 2. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I guess, have you guys seen the FSD? Looks ridiculous. Check out his new design. Anyway, so one thing that I think is really important for front flippers is the detent. And the detent is just, what holds the knife in the handle, how hard it is to get the knife out. And for a front flipper, what I've found is that you really want a lighter detent. You don't want a detent that's so stiff and strong where you're struggling to flip it out. A good example of a nice light detent for front flippers is the Petrified Fish Beluga. Really kind of easy, light, crispy detent, really easy to flip out. And that's what you want from a front flipper. You don't want to be struggling to get the knife out and to flip it, mostly because front flipping in itself is a little bit tricky, and you gotta get your hand positioned the right way, and you don't want to slice yourself when the blade comes out. So you have to kind of get everything set up, and the last thing you want is for the detent to be too stiff. Another thing which I think, and I'll go over the detents of all of these. Actually, yeah, I'll do that now. So, Beluga. Oh, I middle finger flicked it. I should have front flipped it. For the Beluga, detent is, if it was any other deployment method, I think it would be too light. Actually, I know it would be too light of a detent. But for the front flip or the middle finger flick, detent is right on. It's nice and light, still crispy, still snappy. Really easy to deploy as far as detent goes. For the Axon, same thing. Detent is a little bit stronger than the Beluga, but still light enough where you can just get that little tab and then flip it. Detent on the lighter side, but still stronger than the Beluga. Now, well, we have the Nimble, which is excellent knife. Love this knife. But the detent it's tough. I've kind of learned how to do it on this knife, how to flip it, but the detent is perfect for the regular flip and really so nice, crispy, so perfect for the middle finger flick. but too strong for the front flip. Then we have kind of the honorable mention of the day, the brown knives. Cortex, you know, is this a front flipper? You can't. It's more like a top flipper. You can flip it like that, or you can do, I included it because you can do that same kind of front flipping motion. What an incredible knife. So I'm going to set this one aside because it's not technically a front flipper, but I want to show you guys you can do that same front flipping motion. Detent is ridiculous on this. It's just glossy, smooth, awesome knife. And look at the carbon fiber. One of my favorites. Ridiculous. So nice. Okay, so last on the list is the 520. Let's check out the detent. Oh, really, really nice. This might be the strongest, other than the nimble. You know, out of these three, I think this might be the strongest detent, but it works so well. Now, another thing to mention, kind of my other criteria for front flippers, is the actual flipper position, you know, the geometry of where the front flipper sticks out and how it sticks out. So, you know, when we're looking at these knives, you can see, I'll just go ahead and line them all up so you guys can see. These two are very similar. You got the little, you know, pokey end. So there's something for your thumb to catch on. And there's nothing in the back here. Nothing in the back is smooth. This is a frame lock. This is a liner lock. But there's nothing to catch your finger. It's just boom, done. Then for the Axon, you still have, you know, you still have a tab there, but it's just less pronounced. I think on the, was it the liner lock? I don't know, the first run of these, I think the tab was actually bigger and he kind of downsized it. It's fine. I mean, it works, but there's less, it's not ideal for me. There's less to kind of grip onto. For this knife, I usually, excuse me, I usually opt for the middle finger flick just because it's easier than the front flip, a little bit more comfortable, but there's just less of a tab. And then for the nimble, there's quite a bit of tab there, but it's tucked into the scale, so it's flush with the scale. So the angle of kind of getting this to front flip is a little bit tricky, a little bit tough. And as you go to front flip it, if your finger's resting on here, it's just a little bit awkward. It can be done. Lots of people do it, but just a little bit tricky with that. So as far as what is, you know, and I'm just talking about, there are plenty of front flippers that I don't have, obviously, but out of the ones that I have on the table, out of all these, I prefer to front flip with this kind of, what I consider like a standard front flipper, where you have, oh, I forgot, I have one more front flipper. Damn, I should go get that one. Well, honorable mention, it's the, what is it? The Sharp by Design Mini Tempest. Man, that's a good one too. But anyway, that I have that downstairs. But anyway, that has a similar front flipper to these two. Anyway, so I prefer this kind of traditional, just a little corner that sticks out because I'm able to catch it with my thumb as I flip it out. Man, I'm gonna have to make a new, I'm gonna have to make another video on front flippers now and include the Mini Tempest just because it's that good. These two, you know, this kind of shortened front flipper is fine. It's just not as satisfying as these two. And then this, I'm just not a huge fan of. This is a great knife, but the front flipper for me just doesn't do it. The other thing that you have to kind of keep in mind with front flippers is how you position your hands, especially if it's a frame lock. You know, you don't want to put any lock bar pressure on. You don't want to have your finger on the lock bar. So you kind of have to get onto the clip and then come around the side of it. So it takes a little bit of getting used to. I think an awesome beginner front flipper is the Beluga, just because it's a liner lock. It's actually a really big, kind of chunky, which I like, big chunky knife. And you don't have to worry about the lock bar pressure. There's plenty of room for your hand. detent is nice and light and comfortable. I mean, the action's ridiculous too, but I think this is a great one to learn on. And then, of course, you can kind of graduate to the axon, where I have to just pay a little bit more attention to where my fingers land, kind of where I position my hand, kind of come around it. Surprisingly, for what is this, like $600? For a $600 knife or so, around that price point, this is actually really easy to front flip. You don't really have to, even though it is a frame lock, I don't find myself worrying about the frame lock pressure. I don't really have to worry about that. It's not that sensitive. It's really easy to access the front flipper tab. Really satisfying. I mean, I would love to see a beginner front flipper attempt this one, because I think it's very, very doable, very easy to front flip. And then, of course, beginners beware for the front flip. And I'm not ragging on the nimble. This is an amazing knife. This was my knife of the year 2021. But my big critique of it was the front flipper. It's just not a front flipper for beginners. It's just, if you go to kind of front flip it on the side of your thumb, you're going to tear up your thumb. You kind of have to go up and around. It works, but definitely more of the advanced. If you can front flip this, you can front flip anything. That's what I'm trying to say. So hand position, and that's another thing, because this is a smaller frame lock, you kind of get jumbled up and jammed up where you want to rest your fingers, and that might be part of it, kind of putting the lock bar pressure on to get this to deploy successfully. So let's go over the prices if I can remember. I think this was like $285 or so. I'm just doing my best to recall. I don't have the prices written down. Again, this is $500, $600 range. This is like $50, $60. Definitely in the budget category. Really, really nice budget knife. The clip I'm not into, but everything else is awesome. G10 feels great. And then the Axon, these must be 300, low 300s, 300, right around 300. So see, with this one, I'm so tempted to middle finger flick it, but front flips only today. Okay, so let's go ahead and order these. I think you guys already know what order they're going to be in, but let's go ahead and order them, and I'll tell you why I prefer each one. I'll just go through it really quickly. Again, I'm not including my Brown Knives Cortex just because, is it really a front flipper? But it can be, front flipped. Anyway, putting that aside, let's go ahead and count it down. All right, number 4, obviously, we got the nimble. It's just hard to front flip. For me, I can do it, but I kind of had to teach myself and learn and practice front flipping this specific knife. Awesome knife. It's too hard to front flip. If they, and I said this in my review of it, but if that wasn't there and this was just part of the scale, I think that it would be a superior design. I just don't need to front flip this ever. It can be done. Oh, almost. It's just not easy and not even that satisfying. I would much rather middle finger flick it. Just a little bit tough. The geometry's tough. Detent is great for the other deployment methods, but for the front flip, it's just a little bit tricky, a little bit annoying for me. For my hands, not into it. So I'll go ahead and mark that at number 4. Number 3, we're coming in. It's actually almost in order. Move these out of the way. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about the Axon coming in number 3. Really nice front flipper. Tremendous design from Vero. Tremendous quality from Bestech. Of course, they crushed the production. Does this need to be a front flipper? No. Again, I think sometimes it feels like front flippers get tacked on like as an extra deployment method just to be a front flipper, and I just don't need it to be a front flipper. If this was flush with the scale and the geometry was a little bit different, even if this was just flush with the scale and it was only middle finger flick, I feel like that would be more enjoyable for me. So I end up just middle finger flicking this one. Again, it can be front flipped and it is satisfying. It's an awesome knife, but this is coming in at number 3. Number 2, this is actually a close call. Now, as far as actions go, deployment action, really similar, which is crazy since there's about $500 difference in price between these two. But of course, we got 4, 3, 2. Number 2 is the Petrified Fish Beluga. Detent is light, but works really well for the front flip. Action is crazy. You can middle finger flick it. Detent is a little bit too light, although it works great, especially if you're learning how to front flip. Detent is a little bit too light, but for $50, I mean, come on. You can't beat this as a front flipper for the price. Like pound for pound, this is so nice. G10 feels great. The flipper tab is accessible. Does the flipper tab look really damn ugly? 100%. Super ugly. But it works really well for a front flipper. When I first, got this knife, I was not looking forward to it. And I thought, oh no, this looks so terrible. It would look so much better like that. But front flips great. Really excellent action. Satisfying, easy to learn on, easy to front flip, coming at number 2. And then, of course, my favorite front flipper, number 1. And by the way, I'm not going to forget about the Mini Tempest. That is in this list. I'm going to do another front flipper video. I will include that. It is important. It is an excellent front flipper. So I will include that knife. But number 1 coming in is the 520. It's the most satisfying to front flip. It's the easiest to access. There's a little bit of jimping on the front flipper. Crispy. I mean, now there's only one, by the way, one more thing I forgot to mention. There's only one method of deployment for the 520. There's the middle finger flick on this guy, middle finger flick on this guy, middle finger flick, and front flippers. But for the 520, this is really like a specialized front flipper, front flip only, which is fine. It is that good. If you've never experienced one of these and they come up for sale, they're kind of hard to get. They pop up on Knife Swap and stuff every once in a while. A little bit hard to get, but man, this is a phenomenal knife. The detent is just strong enough, dialed in perfectly. It's a comfortable front flip. The action is satisfying. The drop shuttiness is right on. Just the quality. Got that kind of dark stonewash titanium, the cool carbon fiber. It is a frame lock, but it almost doesn't deploy like a frame lock. And they also have the 520 as, I think it's a liner lock. They make the other version as, it's either a bolster lock or a liner lock. I think it's a liner lock. Anyway, is it? I don't know. You guys tell me. But it's just so crispy. Just so crispy and nice. This is my number 1 favorite front flipper. I might do a showdown between this and the Mini Tempest, just to include that in another video because I forgot it. But man, just can't beat the action on that guy. Super, super crispy, clean. Detent is perfect. And of course, it's easy to front flip. You're not going to struggle with the front flip on the 520. So that concludes my front flipper special. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching it and hearing me talk about front flippers. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, I'm not like the front flipper expert, but if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Knife Standards. I'll catch you later.